Welcome to a special edition of Rational Man. Now, many of you have been expecting me to unveil the world's first perfect snow globe. I am pleased, as probably are you, to say that that's not going to be this week, because this week I have obtained, at great expense in terms of orcs, the One Ring. This is the One Ring from the trilogy of the Ring. It is the authentic one, the actual one that was forged in Mordor so many, many years ago, and has come to us today for the purpose of being destroyed. Obviously, that crap about little Frodo destroying it was nothing more than propaganda on his part. Now, of course, before we attempt to destroy this, we should actually find out if it is the real ring. Now, as I look at it, I have questions. First of all, it's not gold, although there's nothing other than Tolkien himself that might have suggested it is. And the poem on it does not refer to binding other rings in darkness. It is actually a filthy limerick about elves and their shortcomings. Nevertheless, we're going to give it the acid test right now, if you are ready.
Well, alrighty then.
Dude, that is so cool. Let's try that again.
Hey, guess how many fingers I'm holding up?
Whoa. I like it. Dude, don't you wish you had this? All right, well, maybe you can later. Maybe we'll put it on a charity auction or something on eBay eventually. All right, so now that we've established that this is the One Ring and it's not gold, what is it? Chances are pretty good it's tungsten. As any metallurgist will know, that tungsten is one of the hardest things to melt, and it is, of course, quite a bit sturdier than actual gold. And all of us have seen the videos on YouTube, I'm sure, where somebody tries to break a tungsten ring by smacking it very gently with a hammer on a wooden block. Obviously, if I did that, it would shatter into a million pieces, wood or not. But we're not going to destroy the ring that way because, I mean, there's no challenge to it. You can actually destroy one of these with a pair of vice grips if you squeeze it too hard. So aside from all the BS that you hear about tungsten and see about tungsten, we're going to find out if you can melt tungsten using probably one of the best available methods, which is thermite. And we have learned through viewer ratings over the last few months that thermite, in fact, anything involving melting, blowing stuff up, or falling from a great height is well received. So this time, instead of using a...
Oops.
Sorry, I did it again. Instead of using a crucible that's lined with like 1/8 of an inch of ceramic, we're going to use a sturdy block of graphite to do our dirty work here, because graphite can withstand very high temperatures. And we're going to also fill this ring with a little plug of graphite so that the iron doesn't flow into it and make it impossible to remove when it's done. Now again, thermite shouldn't be able to melt this. It shouldn't come within 1,000 degrees of melting this. Nevertheless, we're going to give it a shot because that's what we do. I'm going to take this out in the shop, modify it a little, cut it down so we don't use as much thermite as all that, although I don't really know what we're saving it for. We'll make a nice paperweight out of this at the very least. Ready? Okay, so as promised, there's the One Ring. We're going to go ahead and put the little graphite plug in there. We're going to put that in there, and we're going to use these blocks to build a crucible. And we're going to use these stainless steel tie wraps because carbon is actually a pretty good conductor of heat, and it will in fact melt any plastic tie wraps. There we go. Look a bit like that. And it looks like we have thermite there. Okay, so our crucible should be ready to open, and I noticed that our straps, even though they were stainless steel, have actually melted. At least that one did. This one seems to be okay. All right. That's still a little bit warm, but if all went well, we can turn this upside down and take that part off. Okay, at first inspection, it almost appears that our ring did get trashed, but because of the imperfect nature of the mold, that is not at all a certainty. I'm going to need to do a little more work on that. I was able to remove some of that slaggy business, and now you can see that the ring itself actually has not been melted. That's just a little design I carved into the graphite there. That's now in a 1 pound block of iron. Now, the ring did not melt, so it probably, well, I would say it really is tungsten. So kudos for that. And of course, it is a little discolored by the heat, but once I get it out of that block of iron, it'll probably polish up quite nicely. So there you have it. The verdict is in. If it's between thermite versus tungsten, tungsten wins. That is to say that thermite will not melt tungsten, although it looks like we're going to have a heck of a time getting it out of there. Let that be a lesson to those of you who are thinking of molding thermite. Well, sorry, it looks like you're going to have to make the trip back to Mount Doom if you're going to get rid of this thing. Else it might steal your soul. Personally, I'm lucky in that regard since I don't have one. So anyway, thanks for watching. Tune in next week to see what we might be blowing up for your edification.